All right, Uncharted. I still cannot believe I actually saw this movie in a movie theater. I mean, it seems like this movie has been trying to get off the ground for such a long time that even when I heard that they finally filmed, like finally finished filming this movie, I almost didn't believe it was still going to come to theaters. It's crazy that it's actually here. I remember back in 2010, early 2011, when they originally were talking about making an Uncharted movie, and Mark Wahlberg was supposed to be playing Nathan Drake, and it had a predicted release date of 2013, and it just kept getting delayed. Directors kept coming and leaving. Scripts kept getting written and then tossed. And then finally, 9 years later, from the predicted release date, here we are in 2022, and now Tom Holland's playing Nathan Drake, and Mark Wahlberg is now playing Victor Sully. And I'm a huge fan of the video game, so in this review, I'm going to kind of review it from just a regular audience member's perspective, and also I'm going to review it from the perspective of somebody who has played the video games. And I actually had a really good time with this movie. I was worried going into the movie because in the trailers it seemed like Tom Holland was more so trying to cosplay as Nathan Drake. Like I didn't really buy him in the trailers. I was like, I don't know how to feel about that. It just kind of seems like Spider-Man now going on a world adventure, and I know that's me kind of typecasting him, but that's the impression I got. And then Mark Wahlberg, who's playing Victor Sully, it seemed from a lot of the trailers that he was still trying to almost be Nathan Drake, but he's playing Victor Sully. So I was a little bit worried going in. You know what? This movie was actually really, really fun though. And one of the things I also really liked about this movie is that they shot at locations as well. I mean, yes, sure, there are some instances of where green screen, blue screen and stuff is used. But there's so many action movies these days where it seems like they're just filming in like a backstage somewhere, or they're just throwing up some green screen somewhere. And it was nice to actually see this movie as, just like in the games, when Nathan Drake world travels, it's nice to see that in this movie they go to actual locations around the earth and they start filming those locations. And it's not actually green screen. That was nice. I actually liked the way the action was filmed as well. Lots of times in action movies these days, even Marvel's guilty of this, we get a lot of quick cuts. In this movie, when they're jumping around, running around the city, we get wide shots, we get close shots, but it's not jumbled together, so you can actually tell what's happening. The geography of what's going on in the movie is actually well done, and that is something that I always appreciate when it comes to an action movie. One of the great things about the Uncharted games is the characters, and how the characters have great chemistry with each other and really mesh with each other. And in this movie, I really like the chemistry between Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. In the video games, Mark Wahlberg's character, Victor Sullivan in the video games is kind of, he's there in the beginning sometimes of games, and then he kind of disappears. He's never really like a big focus point. He just always seems to just kind of be in certain chapters, and then he's gone. And that's why a lot of people, when it came to like video games like Uncharted 3, Uncharted 4, they were kind of complaining after Uncharted 2, so they kind of put him more in Uncharted 3 and Uncharted 4. And this movie, what I really liked, and something that the video games didn't do, is they really had Nathan Drake and Victor Sullivan really mesh together, really team up together, be able to fight together, and really work together in ways that the games never really showed. And that's kind of like the good part about having a younger Victor Sullivan in this movie, is the fact that in the games he's much older, but in this movie, since he's much younger, he's able to do all these cool stunts and everything, just like Nathan Drake. Chloe Frazer was one of the big standouts in the games, really came on the scene in Uncharted 2. And the actress that played her in this movie did a really fantastic job. I can't wait to see what they do with her in the future, which honestly, that was also my big takeaway of this movie, is I really hope this movie does well, because there are some nitpicky things that I'm going to get into in just a second when it comes to kind of like the video game side, if you're a fan of the video games going into this movie. But this movie was solid enough, and it laid a well enough of a foundation that I really feel like if they could really take this to the next level with a sequel, because even if you think like of the first Uncharted game, the first Uncharted game is very, compared to all the other games, it's very lackluster. Not to say it's bad, but it's very simple. It's all kind of done in sort of one location, and compared to the other games, it's very lackluster. So in a movie like this, I kind of consider this like the first video game. And with a movie like Uncharted 2, if this does well enough at the box office, if they were to make a second one, they can go balls to the wall, basically just like the Uncharted 2 video game did. So I really hope this does well in the box office. Alright, now if you are a fan of the video games like I am, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to take you a little bit to nestle in and really start to buy Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg as Victor Sullivan. And it really comes down to the fact that towards the beginning of the movie, their dialogue, then the witty banter back and forth, they both seems like dialogue and witty banter that Nathan Drake would do. All right, and so that's kind of when I was talking about earlier in the review, how it seemed like both of them were trying to play Nathan Drake. It gets a little weird at first, especially, I mean, if you haven't played the video game, you're not going to notice it. But if you played the video game, it's exactly what's going to happen to you. You're going to sit there and you're going to be like, oh, this just feels off. As the movie goes along, it seems like both Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg kind of settle into their characters. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's also the script that they're reading. So I mean, it's not their fault that their dialogue is the way that it is. But as the movie goes on, I started to buy Tom Holland more as Nathan Drake. I started to see him less as a cosplayer and stuff. Although I will say, and especially after seeing that Uncharted fan film that was filmed back in 2018, it really is a damn shame that we will never be able to see Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake. Because I know Nathan Fillion's getting up there in age, but man, would it have been cool to just like get one movie with Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake? Because you look at Nathan Fillion and you're just like, dude, that dude's Nathan Drake. Or even someone like a Chris Pratt. But you know, Tom Holland, he's what we got, and he did a fine job with it. The other thing that happened in this movie was there's something that Victor Sullivan does that it feels very out of place for his character. And if you play the games, it's going to happen in this movie. You're going to go, oh, I don't like that. The good part about the fact that you're not going to like that is later on in the movie, they kind of redeem the fact that he did something that he did, and it kind of wipes that away. But I remember, it's just a fan of the video games, and I knew going into this movie, I said, listen, just like someone who reads a book and goes and watches a movie or anything like that, any sort of adaptation, you got to kind of put your expectations to the side a little bit. You got to, I mean, with all adaptations, you're going to have to, there's a little bit of give and take, all right? And there's just certain things in this movie, especially when it came to Victor Sullivan, I was like, I do not like this. I had to keep telling myself, listen, it's a movie, it's an adaptation. If that's the way they want to go, it's the way they want to go. No budget of a movie is going to be able to capture what the Uncharted games capture, right? I mean, the Uncharted games would cost like $1 billion to adapt them the exact way they need to be adapted. So the movie itself was fine. If you're an Uncharted fan, I do think you will like the movie. There's just certain minor nitpicks I think you'll have. It was really cool if you've played the games, going and seeing locations and stuff that's basically from the video games and certain set pieces, mainly from Uncharted 3 and Uncharted 4. The whole trailer set, if you've seen the trailer where there's helicopters and the ships are below the helicopters and the helicopters are flying the ships away, I saw that in the trailer and I was like, dude, that's like the most Uncharted thing I've ever seen. I was like, if they ever make another Uncharted game, that a scene like that's going to be in the game. And that scene in the entire movie where there's helicopters carrying the boats, the ships across the water, it's really entertaining. It's really well done. And that's another scene of the movie where I feel like Tom Holland really became Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg really became Victor Sullivan, and that's when I really started to really buy their performances. At the end of the day, this is just a fun popcorn adventure movie, and that's really all this movie had to be, because that is exactly what the video games are. So I know this movie's kind of getting panned by critics right now, and listen, that doesn't surprise me. This is the type of movie that's going to be panned by critics. I don't care. I don't know what the Rotten Scores percentage is right now. I haven't looked. I know it was rotten like a week ago, so I assume it probably still is rotten, because I was watching this movie and I was like, yeah, there's I highly doubt critics are going to like this movie. But as just a regular audience member, or if you're just a fan of the Uncharted games, I mean, this is a good adaptation in the fact that it just takes that popcorn-filled adventure from the video games, and it takes good character chemistry from the video games, as well as the good musical score and the cool action pieces, and it puts it on the big screen in front of you for 2 hours. So listen, if you're a fan of the games, I promise you're going to find some enjoyment out of this movie. If you've never played the games before, I also think you're going to find a lot of enjoyment out of this movie. And if you haven't played the games before, you're going to have less to nitpick, because for you, it's just going to be a fun action adventure movie. So go out and see Uncharted, support it. I really hope we get an Uncharted 2. And anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching my review, and I hope to see you back in my next one.